Hello, I'm Adrian Finnegan, and this is Counting the Cost on Al Jazeera, your weekly look at the world of business and economics. This week, returning to homes and businesses reduced to rubble. Rebuilding Gaza will cost tens of billions of dollars. So who foots the bill for Israel's war, and at what cost for the Palestinians? A boost for Javier Milei or Argentina's economy? The US extends a $20 billion lifeline to the nation, but what is really behind the rescue, and will it help to stabilize the nation's financial markets? And the EU is investing more than $13 billion in South Africa. Why is the bloc pouring its money into the nation, and will it help South Africa become a leader in green energy? From the air, it looks like a city erased. Entire neighbourhoods have vanished from the map 2 years since Israel's relentless bombardment of Gaza began. What were once homes, schools, hospitals, factories and power plants have been reduced to debris and dust. The Strip's destruction is almost beyond measure, with almost 80% of buildings damaged or destroyed. Thousands of Palestinians are now returning to ruins or rubble in a place that's lost the very fabric of daily life. Economists estimate that the cost of rebuilding will be tens of billions of dollars, far beyond the capacity of Gaza's shattered economy. Recovery could take years. But who should shoulder the cost of rebuilding? And what's Israel's financial responsibility here? Dmitry Medvedenko reports.
Palestinians in Gaza are waking up not to the sound of bombardment and drones, but to bulldozers and running water. This is a desperately needed change.
This is a desalination plant. They took some of the equipment to the south when Gaza City was under heavy bombardment and there were evacuation orders. They were trying to protect it. But now, today, they're bringing it back.
2 years of Israel's war has uprooted the Strip, leaving a wasteland in its wake. Now that there's a US-brokered peace plan, Donald Trump, who months ago said he wants to see a Gaza Riviera, says it's time to move forward with rebuilding.
In one sense, it's so horrible that it could have taken place, but in another sense, it's so beautiful to see a new and beautiful day is rising, and now the rebuilding begins. The rebuilding is maybe going to be the easiest part. I think we've done a lot of the hardest part.
Many economists say they disagree it will be easy because of the scale of the damage. It's not just physical damage, it's a collapsed economy and a deeply fractured society. The United Nations Development Programme says around $70 billion will be needed for reconstruction. This includes housing. Most of Gaza is a pile of rubble. A UN and World Bank report earlier this year said $15 billion is needed just for homes. Bringing the healthcare system back online will cost another $7 billion, according to the WHO. The education system will take around another $4 billion, but the economic damage from 500,000 children being out of school for 2 years is vastly larger. Plus, billions in needed food aid, water, rebuilding sewage systems, the essentials of survival. And there are already problems in financing those essentials.
Only 28% of the $4 billion needed for the 2025 flash appeal for these areas, for the OPT, has been funded. Only 28%. So every government, every state, every individual that has been watching this crisis unfold and wondering, what can we do? If only there is something we can do. Now is the time to make that generosity count that, frankly, the world owes right now.
With so much effort needed to rebuild Gaza, it's yet unclear who could foot the bill. What many analysts agree on is that any substantial investment and rebuilding would first require guaranteed long-term peace in Gaza. Dmitry Medvedenko, Al Jazeera, for Counting the Cost.
Joining us from Istanbul is Mamoun Baseso, a senior advisor to the UN and the European Union, specializing in conflict-affected areas across the Middle East, North Africa region. Good to have you with us, Mamoun. You are from Gaza. Tell us something more about the sheer scale of the destruction and what that means for your family who are still trapped in Gaza, and the thousands of people who are trying to return to what well, once their homes.
Thank you very much for having me here. Yes, I'm from Gaza. My family is in Gaza. My business in Gaza. All my life in Gaza. I was in Gaza just before the war. I left on a mission for the United Nations. Then the war took place while I was in the airport. Now my family in Gaza right now, they are returning back to Gaza. They got displaced more than 20 times within Gaza Strip. Now they are returning back to the Gaza city. All their houses are destroyed, and they are looking for some temporary shelter. They hope that the war will be ended, but still they are skeptical about the government of Israel intention, whether to continue, whether to be back to war or not, because till now Israel occupies 58% of Gaza. Families, all people in Gaza, they are suffering a lot due to huge devastation, no water, no education, no health, no shelter, nothing. It's total devastation, and this unprecedented in the history of the mankind and the history of Gaza Strip. So we hope our best option is to end the war, end genocide, and end the bloodshed in Gaza.
And what about economic activity, Mahmoud? Is there anything left to sustain it? I mean, even basic economic activity in the Strip?
Well, there is nothing left in Gaza. People are striving hard to build their economies, some small farmers doing some small farming practice, some food processing units to produce bread. There is no major economy left. People now are totally dependent on the humanitarian aid. Before the war, 80% of Gaza people were relying on humanitarian aid. Now, all the people are relying on humanitarian aid and assistance from foreign countries. So one of the issues that we are considering is to revive the economy and bring business back to usual. And we would like to have some job creation programs to invest, to have jobs for more than 100,000 people, to inject cash in the market, so the economy will start recycling again. But this is a huge challenge because it takes a huge amount of money. Now you latest estimate that we need $70 billion. This is the total value of damage and loss, but we don't expect that donors will put all this 70 billion. So we demand at least we need $20 billion to cover the short-term needs for the coming 3 years, okay, including some economic recovery.
We'll come to the cost of reconstruction and who pays that in just a moment. But first, what are the most urgent needs of people on the ground right now? I can imagine essential services, for one, with water, sewerage, electricity systems almost completely destroyed, or in fact completely destroyed. And housing, of course. All of these people need somewhere to live.
Yes, right. The immediate urgent need for people is to reinstall the basic services. Now people, they need the shelter. Unfortunately, we are looking for temporary shelters like tents or caravans, and also we need to return back the basic services like water, electricity. We need the education, back to school. We need health clinics. We need to install all these basic services, including telecommunication. This is the most urgent needs, because we expect that reconstruction will take a long time. So people cannot wait in the street. They need temporary shelters for accommodation and also basic service.
Reconstruction is going to take a long time, but how soon can it get underway? Israel has made reconstruction efforts in the past very difficult. It's still in control of, what, 60% of the Strip right now. How soon can the job get started?
This is a very tricky question. It really depends upon two scenarios. If Israel imposes restrictions on Gaza reconstruction, same as did in the year 2014, there was the Gaza reconstruction mechanism. We are not allowed to bring one bag of cement unless Israel approves that. UNRWA cannot construct a school unless Israel approves that. And Israel delay the response on the UNRWA projects. So now if we use same mechanism, according to a UN report, we need 14 years for rapid removal, and we need 80 years for construction of houses. So this is impossible. So everybody is rejecting this Israel control of Gaza reconstruction. So our best case scenario that we allow entry of construction materials 24/7, entry of heavy equipment, and also because our local contractors' capacity is totally damaged, we need to have regional contractors, maybe from Egypt, from Turkey, from China. In this case, we can finish the construction within 8 to 10 years.
Okay, let's get to the big question. Who pays? And what's Israel's responsibility here, financial responsibility towards Gaza, considering that it is responsible for the damage?
Well, according to the international laws, who created the damage is accountable to pay. However, over the past wars, 2008, 2012, 14, Israel refused to be responsible for all these wars and refused to pay one single money. And because the Palestinian Authority it's not a position to put money, so we rely on donors. And donors, they were generous and they put money for the sake of stabilization in the region and on their commitment to the two-state solution. However, this time I have great challenge with donors. They said we are not going to invest one penny unless and until we have a sustainable political solution in Gaza, which they are right, because it doesn't make sense. Like in 2008 war, I was in charge of some EU projects. EU kindly provided fund for reconstruction. After 2 years, distracted again. We went to EU, said I cannot do it again. We went to Islamic Bank, they put some money. After another 2 years, same year is distracted. So went to Kuwait and they get fund. And now, no any donor is willing to invest unless we have a sustainable political solution in Gaza. No more war, no more violence, because Gaza kept on the recycle of construction and destruction doesn't make sense. So we are looking for sustainable peace in Gaza.
Mamoun, it's been really good to talk to you. Many thanks indeed, sir, for being with us on Counting the Cost.
You are welcome, sir. Thank you very much.
Now, in a rare move designed to steady a volatile economy, the US Treasury has agreed to swap up to $20 billion for Argentinian currency and is looking into another $20 billion lifeline for the nation funded by the private sector. The Latin American nation is running low on foreign reserves and is teetering on the edge of yet another economic crisis. Washington says the move is aimed at stabilizing Argentina's financial markets, but critics call it a bailout funded by American taxpayers and a politically timed intervention to bolster President Javier Milei. Milei, who launched a sweeping austerity drive after taking office, faces slumping popularity as the nation heads into midterm elections. So what's behind the deal? And will it buy Argentina enough time to get over its latest economic crisis? Fintan Monaghan reports.
Argentinian President Javier Milei has been thrown a financial lifeline. U.S. President Donald Trump, his most powerful ally, is providing a currency swap, $20 billion to prop up the shaky peso. But Trump was clear, the money will only flow so long as Milei remains in control.
If he does win, we're going to be very helpful. And if he doesn't win, we're not going to waste our time.
Argentina won't have a presidential election until 2027, but a midterm parliamentary vote is set for October 26th. A poor showing by Milei's party could derail his attempts to transform Argentina's economy.
I want to congratulate you for that, and for understanding the threat that 21st century socialism represents around the world, and especially in Latin America.
Milei came to power in late 2023, promising to end Argentina's long string of economic crises. He's cut public spending and slashed regulation. His moves have seen some success. Before, inflation was more than 12% each month. Now it's less than 2%. Argentina was in recession, but growth has now ticked up to the highest rate since 2022. The IMF is projecting 4.5% for 2025. But many people are growing impatient. Austerity and public sector job cuts have put tens of thousands out of work. Nearly 1/3 of Argentinians live in poverty, and cuts to subsidies have made their life harder.
The public hospital treating my daughter saves lives every day. They take care of our children and our families. I want to tell the government that what they are doing is not human.
The upcoming midterm election could be make or break for Milei. He'll be hoping that U.S. support will reassure the markets and the people that his reform plan can turn Argentina around. Fintan Monaghan, Al Jazeera, for Counting the Cost.
Joining us from Malaga, Spain, is Mariano Machado, Principal Analyst for the Americas at Verisk Maplecroft. a global risk intelligence firm. Good to have you with us, Mariano. So what's your take on this Trump bailout of Argentina? Is it about economics or is it about politics? Is it perhaps an attempt to prevent Argentina pivoting away and seeking financial assistance from China?
Thank you for having us today. And indeed, there are multiple layers to this conversation, but exactly as you said, the dominant layer here is a geopolitical decision on behalf of the US. And this has already been made explicit by President Trump, but also by Secretary Bessent. In general, what we're seeing is this drive to avoid Argentina from drifting away in terms of the influence in the geopolitical rivalry that we're witnessing over the past few years. More specifically, at the political level, what we're also seeing is the fact that if the Milei administration is unable to cater to different audiences and prove that the model is successful, that could also have a spillover effect in terms of other, let's say, like-minded movements in other countries in the region. Namely, we're talking about Chile with upcoming elections. We're talking about potentially about Bolivia, who is about to resolve its own election. Same with Brazil, potentially with Colombia. So this is a full-fledged bet in terms of anchoring Argentina as a beacon for like-minded movements in the region.
OK, as we saw in Finson's report, Trump has clearly said that if Milei's party doesn't win in the midterm elections, quote, "we are not going to waste our time because you have somebody whose philosophy has no chance of making Argentina great again." Apart from that smacking of electoral interference, what do you make of it? What does it tell us about Trump's commitment to propping up Argentina, whoever's in charge?
That is actually a very interesting point. We are seeing multiple vectors intervening in this discussion. And President Trump's statements actually generated a lot of strains in the market in the short run because of that alleged, potential withdrawal of support just in a couple of weeks. There were lots of back and forth in terms of clarifications around that, but the bottom line is that basically what the administration is asking from the Milei administration is get your ducks in a row. You need to provide a certain frame of stability that ensures us that for the next 2 years, up until the presidential election kicks in, you will be able, this is the Milei administration, to control Congress to some degree, to push significant reforms, and overall to deliver on this model. If the Milei administration is unable to generate that political sustainability base, we might see further pushes within the US to revisit the terms of this deal and the base of this deal, being the swap, being the potential private sector lifeline as a whole.
Trump's top economic official, Scott Bessent, said that the administration has finalized this $20 billion currency swap agreement. Experts say that that's essentially a loan. Can Argentina afford to pay that back if it is a loan? And what does it tell us about Milei's reform program? Is it not working?
Well, it's a very interesting, there has some technical aspects to it, but all in all, what we're seeing is that the very announcement of the swap instrument by itself proves to be a liquidity bridge, if you will, in terms of assisting the administration to just ease market tensions ahead of the midterms, which, what we're seeing now is the possibility of Milei's political group not faring as positively as was originally expected. And then from that point onwards, basically, it would be, it would allow the administration to just continue to keep the waters as calm as possible in terms to continue to push big structural reforms. But at the end of the day, again, it really boils down to electoral performance and the ability to some degree, control Congress in order to push for these most significant reforms. What we are seeing right now is that due to a series of political decisions in Buenos Aires, the situation, it's far from stable in terms of being able to generate those political bridge and secure those allies that would make this reform program overall more sustainable over time. What we're seeing now is that on the 26th of October, basically the patience of the population will be put to a test in terms of if they are willing and able to support 2 more years of this stringent austerity program, or if we're seeing a much more balanced political situation in the run-up to the next presidential election, potentially leading to yet another change in political color.
Mariano, it's been really good to talk to you. Many thanks indeed for being with us. Now, rare earths are once again at the heart of the trade tension between the US and China. Beijing has threatened to tighten controls on exporting the elements, and the US has said that it will respond with tariffs. Here's a look at why they matter in the trade war between the world's two largest economies. Well, rare earths are 17 elements which aren't hard to find, but are a challenge to refine. China produces 90% of the global supply. It already restricted the export of 7 of the metals in April, and now it's announced that a further 5 will be added to the list, as well as the equipment needed to refine them. Now, if this decision is enacted in December, Western supply chains will be disrupted. Rare earths are used in consumer electronics as well as in the defense industry, and the US relies heavily on China for the elements. Beijing cited national security interests as the reason for the new restrictions, but analysts say that it's a strategic move and a negotiation tactic on the part of China. The announcement of the new controls comes as China's leader, Xi Jinping, is expected to meet with US President Donald Trump at the end of the month. Now, it's seen as a strategic shift in Europe's engagement with Africa, from aid to partnership. The EU has committed more than $13 billion to power South Africa's green and industrial future. The bloc says that its investment in the nation is aimed at sustainable growth, but many see it as a bid to secure access to Africa's critical minerals and green energy supply chains. This as global powers compete for the raw materials needed for the global energy transition. Well, the package includes investing in clean energy, infrastructure, and pharmaceutical projects. Africa's biggest economy is trying to woo investors to create jobs and revive growth. South Africa's exports took a knock from the 30% tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump on its goods. The nation's trade is also under pressure after a major US trade initiative with Africa, AGOA, expired last month. Well, joining us now from Port Elizabeth in South Africa is Oscar van Heerden, a senior research fellow at the University of Johannesburg, an international relations scholar specializing in political economy. Oscar, it's really good to have you with us. What do you make of this investment deal by the EU? How significant is it for South Africa's economy?
Oh, Adrian, thanks for having me. It's absolutely significant. I think, as you say, the geopolitical spectrum is obviously something that we need to take cognizance of. And of course, there's lots of speculation. I can safely say, in terms of my analysis, that the European Union has decided, as you say, to be in partnership with South Africa to build the economy. And there's a number of reasons for this. One is to counter China and its impact. As you know, as early as September this year, a $10 billion US investment from China into South Africa for a tech invasion, a Silicon Valley of sorts. And I do think that the European Union is seeing this and saying we need to strengthen the partnership with South Africa. This 11.7 billion euros investment is a follow-on to a 4.5 billion in March this year, and a further investment earlier in the year in terms of a trade agreement. So clearly a huge amount of money being pumped into South Africa, and the European Union saying we want to do business with you.
Yeah, I can see why South Africa would be pleased here, but what's in it for the EU? What does it get back?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for the European Union, it's an investment in the sense that if you look at the green energy industry, the manufacturing base is within the European Union. So they're already making sure that by investing in South Africa, a lot of the downstream value chain is going to have to come from Europe. The manufacturing goods, the solar panels, the wind turbines, etc., manufactured in Europe. So it's a partnership where both sides are going to benefit. In terms of green economy and energy, hydrogen from Germany, the French are playing their part. So clearly, it's a view and an investment that says we can both benefit. For South Africa, of course, in terms of its triple challenges of unemployment, poverty, and inequality, it's going to make a huge difference on that sense. But for the European Union, it's about downstream, value chain, value add.
Okay. President Ramaphosa has said that this partnership will not only accelerate South Africa's just transition to a low-carbon economy, but also position Africa as the next frontier of clean global production. Is he right? How much of this is going to be translated into tangible job-creating projects?
Yeah, of that amount, Adrian, 11 of the 11.7, 8.7 billion is going into the just transition. It's a move away from the overly reliance of South Africa on coal and going into your wind, solar, and of course, hydro and so forth. I think it's going to make a huge difference. As the largest economy on the continent, I think the rest of Africa is looking to South Africa and looking at this particular deal as to how they can benefit from such investments. I think the job creation is going to be enormous because, as you know, the South Africans have a mixed energy plan and the unemployment is standing at about 36, 37%, so extremely high. And this is going to go a long way in addressing some of that unemployment and poverty levels within the country. The two elements, Adrian, that's required by the South African economy is investment and productivity. And this deal is addressing both those elements.
And as we mentioned in the introduction, of course, South Africa took quite a blow from President Trump's tariffs. Will this investment at least help to cushion that blow in some way?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The 30% tariff from the United States, and as you rightfully point out, the end of the AGOA agreement is a huge knock to not only South Africa, but the region as a whole. And this is definitely a cushion. I mean, the automobile sector has been badly affected. We're looking at 100,000 job losses in that sector alone because of the 30% tariffs. The citrus and wine industry is taking a serious knock. And so alternative markets are required. I think the European investment at the timing of it is certainly very, very helpful for the South African market.
Oscar, it's been great to talk to you on Counting the Cost. Many thanks indeed for being with us.
Always a pleasure.
And that's our show for this week. If you'd like to comment on anything that you've seen, I'm at A Finnegan on X. Remember to use the hashtag AJCTC, please, or you could drop us a line. Countingthecost@altazero.net is our email address. As always, plenty more for you online at altazero.com/CTC. That takes you straight to our page, and there you'll find individual reports, links, even entire editions to catch up on. But that's it for this edition of Counting the Cost. I'm Adrian Finnegan from the team here in Doha. Thanks for being with us. The news on Al Jazeera is next.